How y'all doing? Pokemon the Pokemon Gamer, and welcome to another video. Now, full disclosure before this video begins, yes, this video will have spoilers for the original Final Fantasy VII and the remake in it. However, do not be alarmed. If you want to stay completely blind to both the original and the remake, I will be putting up spoiler tags whenever it happens. Look out for this screen whenever I spoil Final Fantasy VII the original, and this screen at the very end when I end up spoiling the endgame of Final Fantasy VII Remake. With that out of the way, let's get started. So you've probably seen this all over Twitter, all over Instagram, all over the internet really, everywhere. Final Fantasy VII Remake is out. It came out a couple weeks ago, as of the time of recording this video. It came out a couple weeks ago, and people are loving it. The game looks fantastic, plays fantastic, and apparently is just a really, really good game. But to people on Xbox maybe, who are seeing all of this hype and don't really get it, you're probably asking yourself the same question that the title here poses. What's the big deal with Final Fantasy VII Remake? And if I have to tell you what the big deal is with Final Fantasy VII Remake, you're not allowed to call yourself a true gamer. Final Fantasy VII is one of the most iconic and influential video games ever created. It has somehow maintained its popularity and is being referenced by and influencing modern video games. There is so much stuff that comes out now that has been influenced, at least in some way, by Final Fantasy VII. And that game came out 23 years ago. So the big deal about Final Fantasy VII Remake, plain and simple, it's a remake of one of the most iconic games ever made. Final Fantasy VII Remake actually has quite a history. It initially started in 2005. After the original Final Fantasy VII came out, people loved it, people played it, it was great, it was awesome, super dope. 2005 happens. The PS3 is announced to the public. Final Fantasy VII is actually one of the games that is infamous for burning a bridge between Square Enix and Nintendo, because before Final Fantasy VII, all the Final Fantasies were on Nintendo consoles. But with Final Fantasy VII, Square Enix wanted to go bigger and better, and while the Nintendo 64 was powerful enough, cartridges didn't have enough space to hold all of the data that they wanted to for Final Fantasy VII. I mean, technically discs didn't either, since Final Fantasy VII came on multiple discs, but discs are also much cheaper to produce, so PS1 it was. And that was actually its legacy for a long time, not only being one of the most iconic RPGs ever made, but also the fact that it was not on a Nintendo console. And honestly, this bridge between Square Enix and Nintendo wouldn't be mended for quite a while. But back to Final Fantasy VII Remake. In 2005, when Sony announced the PlayStation 3, they obviously had to show some kind of tech demo to let people know, okay, this is how powerful the PS3 is. Keep in mind, this is a time way before most gamers cared about teraflops and SSDs and whatever the heck the CPU is on both the Xbox Series X and the PS5. Think about it this way, this is the generation when the Wii was the most popular console of all time. So obviously Sony had to show the gamers something to put some faith in the PS3. And oh my god, the PS3 needed faith at launch. Jesus Christ, what is that price tag? This is in 2005, by the way. The history of Final Fantasy VII Remake actually starts a little something like this.
What is... wait... hold on... we're getting Final Fantasy VII on the PS3. Bro, they're remaking Final Fantasy VII on the PS3. This is gonna look so good. It already looks so... dude, this looks like Advent Children. Look at that card, bro. Bro, look at that card. Look at that dude. We're getting Final Fantasy VII in HD on the PS3. This is makeup. Bro, this looks so good. We're getting Final Fantasy VII in HD! Bro! Is that the Mako? Oh, that's the Mako reactor, baby! Final Fantasy VII, baby! No!
As you can tell, by the end, it was quite the shocker that it was just a tech demo. And it's not one of Square's brightest moments. But it was clear from the fan reaction that most people had to that trailer that people would really like to see a Final Fantasy VII Remake. And yeah, all the backroom stuff, all the rumors, the leaks, obviously those all came out. But what we're really getting into is real, substantiated stuff. Back in 2015 at E3, Square Enix dropped the trailer that started it all. Final Fantasy VII Remake was coming to PS4. And there was a couple more things to address before they show off the game again in 2019. They wanted the game to be big, real big. And they knew that they couldn't fit everything into a development schedule that would get the game out before the end of time. So they decided to do what they kind of did in the first game, and that was break it down. Except now they're breaking it down and releasing it separately, whereas the original Final Fantasy VII all came together, just multiple discs. Instead, they decided that the first part of Final Fantasy VII Remake would be the Midgar section, the first section of the game, and that was going to be the entirety of Final Fantasy VII Remake when it first dropped. And that they would release the other parts later when they developed them. It was a way for them to not put too much stress on their developers to fit everything in, and it was a way that they could get the game out to the fans before all the fans died. And let's be honest, the game already came out 5 years after it was initially revealed, and 15 years after everybody thought it was going to come out. It was time to drop something. And that too, that was with a couple of delays. But nevertheless, Final Fantasy VII Remake is in people's hands now. The game takes the entirety of the Midgar section, from the opening bombing mission all the way to the end when the party leaves Midgar to go find Sephiroth. The problem with that is though, Sephiroth never actually shows up in that part of the game. And that was something that people actually noted before the game even came out, that the main antagonist of the game, the main antagonist of Final Fantasy VII, never shows up in that part of Final Fantasy VII. And so, speculation went wild. But we don't even need to examine speculation, since the game is here. This is your final spoiler warning. I will not be giving any more spoiler alerts after this point. We are delving into the end game of Final Fantasy VII Remake. If you want to avoid endgame spoilers for Final Fantasy VII Remake, turn back now, or skip to the timestamp you'll see when the spoiler alert screen comes up. Ready? Here we go. At the end of Final Fantasy VII Remake, Sephiroth actually shows up. But how is he here? Well, to see that, we'll first need to examine something else in the game, called the Whispers of Fate. The Whispers of Fate show up throughout the entirety of the game. They're these weird ghost-like apparition things that look kind of like Dementors from Harry Potter, but like grayer and more ghostly than like actual physical things. These things have shown up throughout the course of the game, and only by the end do you figure out what's actually going on with them. The Whispers of Fate are omnipotent, godlike creatures that are hell-bent on keeping the original continuity and canon of Final Fantasy VII intact. And you can see this from what they do. In the original Final Fantasy VII, Cloud meets Aerith for the first time after the bombing mission in the streets. But considering the much larger scale of the game, and the bigger city that they've shown off, it would make sense that Aerith wouldn't necessarily run into Cloud. So the Whispers of Fate take it into their own hands and harass Aerith into meeting Cloud. Then, right after, when Cloud has to fight off the Shinra soldiers, they need Aerith to get out of there since she wasn't there in the original game. So they harass her again to get her out. Another example can be found later in the game, because in this game, they've stretched an initially 10-hour section into a full 40-hour game. Because of that, they've had to add some new things, such as the changes to the second mission. In the original Final Fantasy VII, after the bombing mission, you and the team split up, Cloud ends up fighting a bunch of Shinra soldiers, gets on a train, and goes to the Sector 7 slums. All of them meet up on the train and head to Tifa's bar, 7th Heaven, together. After all the fluff in the middle, the next mission is the second bombing mission at Sector 5. And in that one, the party becomes Cloud, Barrett, and Tifa. Biggs, Wedge, and Jessie don't go on that mission. But in the remake, Barrett doesn't want to use Cloud again, for whatever reason. Maybe Cloud's too expensive, and maybe he just doesn't like the cut of his jib. And Tifa seems to be having second thoughts about the mission too, so she doesn't want to go that much either. And Barrett is initially going to use Wedge and Jessie with him on the mission instead of Cloud and Tifa. But the Whispers of Fate can't have that since that's not how it played out in the original Final Fantasy VII. So they injure Wedge and Jessie so that they're not able to go on the mission, so Cloud and Tifa have to fill in, maintaining the original continuity. By the end of the game though, Sephiroth just shows up, and it's clear that somehow he has escaped the fate or destiny that the Whispers of Fate are trying to keep intact. And so that's how you fight Sephiroth at the end of the game before leaving Midgar. But first you have to fight the Whispers of Fate. And it's implied that after you beat the Whispers of Fate and Sephiroth, that the Whispers of Fate may not be interfering anymore. Meaning that we don't know what changes they'll make to the next parts of Final Fantasy VII. In the original Final Fantasy VII, because it was the first time anything from that continuity and that canon was explored, that was the thing that set up the continuity and that set up the canon. And because this is a remake, you would think that they would be following that exact same structure, but Obviously, with the Whispers of Fate actually pushing things in that direction, it's not necessarily true that everything would transpire the way it did in the original. And it's especially not true after the final fight, since it seems that Cloud and the party have made the Whispers of Fate go away, and that they'll be deciding their own futures in the coming games. Which means we might see some big deviations from the original. In fact, we've already seen one. Biggs ends up making it out of the Sector 7 plate, alive. Jesse dies and Wedge dies, but Biggs ends up making it out. Okay, so real quick, I should have pointed out that it's not confirmed that Wedge dies. I said that he does die, but it's only shown that he gets backed off of a building and you just fade to black and hear some glass and stuff. So while it's not confirmed that he dies, it's implied that he does, which is why I said Wedge dies. And the Whispers of Fate were actually crowding around Jessie, which leads me to believe that depending on the future that happens, maybe she's resurrected. It's clearly evident that they can do that, since they do it to Barrett when he's killed by Sephiroth. But again, Barrett shouldn't be dead this early in the game, so they just bring him back to life. The other thing is, I really like the implementation of the Whispers of Fate. It's clear that the team wanted to do something different with Final Fantasy VII, but they were scared of angering fans of the old game who know the story and everything about Final Fantasy VII and wouldn't want to see it change that much. And so essentially what they've done is they've put those fans in the game. The Whispers of Fate can actually be seen as a metaphor for the fans who would get angry if they changed anything. They're pushing everything into happening exactly as they know it. And if you take that into account, where the Whispers of Fate are stand-ins for fans of the original game that wanted to go in that specific timeline, it's clear that Square and the development team actually plan on taking the other parts of Final Fantasy VII Remake in a completely new direction. Maybe not super different, maybe it's just like a slight tweak here and there, but it's clear that they do want to take it in a different route. So, who knows? Maybe we'll see some pretty crazy things happen in the upcoming games. Maybe Aerith doesn't die. Maybe Jessie comes back to life, and Wedge too, because why not? You know, Wedge was alright. Jessie got the biggest glow up in this game, I swear to Christ. Listen, I'm Team Tifa all the way, but you know, I'm just saying. Maybe other little things from the original Final Fantasy VII might be changed in the remake drastically. And another pretty crazy thing we saw was that Zack is still somehow alive. Zack Fair, Aerith's original boyfriend, is actually inside of Cloud, sort of, in the original Final Fantasy VII. See, the story goes that Zack Fair was actually Cloud's mentor, and that Zack actually was a soldier first class. Cloud never made it there. But Zack was who Cloud was looking up to. Zack ended up being killed by Sephiroth when Sephiroth went crazy, and Cloud, I guess getting revenge for his dead mentor, picks up Zack's Buster Sword and kills Sephiroth. But evidently, Zack's still alive. And I think the weirdest part about that entire thing is that now, if you think about it, there are two Buster Swords. In the scene with Zack, which was actually a recreation of Advent Children, which I think they did fantastically, it's almost shot for shot, Zack actually is wielding the Buster Sword, which Cloud also has. So maybe we're dealing with parallel universes? Parallel layers of reality? We don't know. And that's the really cool thing, is that we don't know. Even people who have played the original Final Fantasy VII like me, I don't know what's gonna happen. Maybe Aerith does live. Maybe Sephiroth never died to begin with. Maybe Sephiroth isn't the final boss and then, like, I don't know, some other person comes along and we tie into Final Fantasy XVI somehow. Nobody knows what's gonna happen, and that's one of the coolest parts of Final Fantasy VII Remake, is that not only is it a faithful remake of the original Final Fantasy VII, but the future parts of it could go in a direction completely different. And that is why Final Fantasy VII Remake is such a big deal. As always, thank you all so much for watching. If you guys did enjoy this video, please do leave a like down below. Comment below how hyped you are for Final Fantasy VII Remake, and if you've picked it up or not, if you're enjoying it, let me know. Also, I would like to say, please, I know that this is currently somewhat trending, so I might get more like views and like more attention on this video than normal. If you are playing through Final Fantasy VII Remake, or if you know the original, try to keep spoilers out of the comments, and if you want to post something and talk about some spoilers in the comments section, please mark it with spoilers and make it so that if people want to avoid spoilers, they can still go into the comments section and not see any if they want to. I'm asking this like nicely. If I do see some stuff, I will be monitoring this video and I will make sure that nobody is spoiled if they don't want to be. So just be considerate, be nice, try not to spoil anything. Because there are people, I get it, it's a 23-year-old game, whatever, but obviously there are some changes and there are some things, and some people haven't played the original game. So, you know, just be kind, try not to spoil things for people who don't want to be spoiled. Subscribe to alerts when new videos come out, including videos like this where I stand in front of a camera and talk, as well as gameplay videos that I do every so often, and hit the bell to join the notification squad and get alerts every single time a new video drops, as soon as it drops, including the moment in time I go live, and share with friends who are about YouTubers such as myself. So guys, in short, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Thank you all so much for watching. I'm the Proud Gamer. My lights.